Welcome back to Morality Matters. We're taking more of a calm, conversational approach from now on because we are really going to start diving deep into powerful information. It's been powerful before, but my friends, I'm about to unleash incredible, powerful knowledge to you. You may have heard some of this before, but I can guarantee no one will be able to piece it together as well as this whole series, quite honestly, of all of my videos will do. It's a progression of knowledge, each of my videos, and I recommend that you do listen to all of them as much as you can. It doesn't have to be in order, but it would make the most contextual sense. But from now on, we are really going down deep into the rabbit hole. This video, of course, if you haven't gathered already from the title, is about what the real Illuminati is. The ones who really rule this world. The people behind the curtain that are making their little handshakes, and they run the whole show, quite honestly. I'd like to think that if you've even made it this far to be able to see this video, you have some kind of inkling of really what goes on. But unfortunately, in the nicest way, if you still think that the politicians and even the corporations are the people that really run this place, you're in for a shock, quite honestly, because there are demonic and almost inhuman forces that really run this show. And it's going to be that way until we really wake up and recognise it and realise we have to take our power back and realise who we actually are. That we have to put aside our differences, get rid of all the division, all the nonsense and the junk, and realise that the only way out is in. And one of the first parts of actually understanding this is really deeply considering who runs the world. Most people will refer to this as the Illuminati, and it's become very trendy at the moment to think that it is the Jews. I say this specifically as a call out because I won't get into name calling, but it's just another trap. If you think that the Jews are the ones that run this world, even the Zionists or whatever, you're in for a shock. And you can believe me all you like, you can turn the show off because you lose interest after a couple of minutes. You can shrug it aside as conspiracy theory. Unfortunately, this is just what I've come to realise after years of deep research from some very smart people that are way smarter than me, but you don't have to be a genius to just recognise the matter of fact that there are people that run this place that we'll never know their names, we'll never see their faces, and we can only see the trickling down symptoms of the things that they institute onto this planet. At large, the system that they have put in place, they, of course, and that's who I'm going to be referring to, the systems they've put in place are ancient. Honestly, they go back into deep human history, which we have, of course, been hugely lied to. And even really down the rabbit hole, it goes interplanetary. That's for another episode because that's real deep and it's very controversial. But this is ancient. It's nothing new. No, it doesn't start in the 1950s or after World War II or stuff like that. This has been absolutely ancient. It's just changed. It's changed its interface. It used to be rulership by way of kings or emperors. Now it is rulership by governments. And as it always has been, beyond all governments, beyond all corporations, even religions, it goes high up. Again, almost interplanetary, interdimensional, quite honestly. That's for another episode. But it goes high up. And again, you will not know their faces. You can only see the symptoms of the things that they put in place. They have their cronies, they have their little puppets and their little institutions that they put about. And I just want to say blatantly, it is it's proven. It's a proven fact that we are enslaved and we are being controlled, and the whole world is being orchestrated by a hidden hand of people, institutions, organisations, secret societies, and all sorts of things that come together, knowingly or not, they come together to create a worldwide control system that is encroaching and goes more and more tighter until we have no freedom left, until we are literal AI technologically integrated robots that are simply a slave class beyond what we even are now. The New World Order is definitely being pushed, and I'm going to unleash to you the real cause and the real behind the scenes of who actually runs this. Again, it's not the Jews, it's not one specific little group. It is so complex, it is so deep and wide, and it needs incredible research. This could take hours and hours and hours unfolding this information. There are researchers that do that, and I will unfold that as time progresses. I'm just going to summarise for this video the main aspects of really who runs this place, because again, without a doubt, there is a overarching control force that really orchestrates basically everything on this planet. Their power remains until we realise their methodology and we say the lost word of no. So, conspiracy theorists. I am not a conspiracy theorist. Don't ever refer to me as that, because I'm not. If you want to refer to me something similar, I'm a conspiracy researcher, I guess. If anything, I'm just a researcher. I'm someone who's used to be in a very heavy box of what I thought was true. You know, your typical NPC zombie, and then one too many things just piled on top of each other in the world situation where you think, there's a bit too much coincidence of certain things happening here, and there's many patterns, and there's very clearly knowledge that has been hidden from us, certain parts of history, huge parts of history that have been hidden from us. This is no accident, and it's just, once those floodgates open, if you really run with the ball, it's a world of knowledge that opens up to you. And so my point is, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. This term is stupid to anyone who has any inkling of what's really going on, because this conspiracy theorist term was brought about after the JFK assassination. It was a CIA-created term just to put people that question the mainstream narrative, that are often have huge holes in them. Do some 9/11 research and you'll come to see just a great example of how these conspiracies can be created and how there are huge holes in them that can easily be broken down by the smallest amount of research and thinking outside the box. And this term has been created to just instantly put someone in a box of, oh, you question the narrative? You must be some weird conspiracy theorist. Ooh, do you believe that reptiles run the world and the Satanic Elite? And it's just another form of mind control. And no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You're just ignorant in the nicest way. Many conspiracy theories are just division tactics, techniques, distractions that are made by the people that the theories target. There used to be a whole period back in the day of the mainstream conspiracy theories being, 9/11, JFK, the moon landing, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Skinwalker Ranch, little things like this that, of course, some of them do have conspiratorial aspects to them, but they're the ones that the mainstream throw out to you. The real big conspiracy here will never, ever be in some conspiracy theory book or in some quaint little TV show that talks about conspiracy theories. The real conspiracy is the overarching control system that is ancient, that is just evolving in different ways, that has a playbook to keep us all mind-controlled, enslaved, powerless, cowardly and fearful. That is the real conspiracy. The world control system and the New World Order that is, by any means necessary, being brought about to control us all and make us literal slaves beyond what we already are. The minimization of our human nature, of our real human divine source, they want that done away with as much as possible. That's the real conspiracy. Blindly believing what the media tells you will be your downfall. If you haven't realised in 2025, the media lies. Social media is one thing, and I've touched on that in the past, but the mainstream news media, oh boy, it's just pure drivel. It's cherry-picked, fear porn, mind control, neuro-linguistic programming lies. It is just the prostitutes, the paid talking head, government-funded narrative, basically. And any major event will hopefully blow your mind of how obviously these people completely lie to you. COVID hopefully helped people realise that. They'll say one thing, masks don't work, and then a few weeks later, oh, you've got to wear a mask, you've got to stay home, you've got to do this and that. It's I'll spare this for another time so it doesn't go too long, but the mainstream media lies, and they cover up this big conspiracy, and they are being run by the people that really run the world. And even in the institutions, like the BBC alone, they're run by paedophiles, they're run by scumbags, and their hierarchy often comes with certain dark intentions, and on certain levels, you've got to get down on your knees, maybe in more ways than one, to make your way up that hierarchy. And either way, they lie, almost completely lie, and they, as I say, cherry pick stories. It's a joke. So this isn't conspiracy theory. You've been severely brainwashed if you cannot see that the mainstream media, their typical narrative on basically anything, and the way that they pick certain stories, it is a lie. It is a complete control tactic to help you forget who you really are, what's really going on in the world. The news, there's nothing new about it. It's the same old playbook nonsense to keep you fearful and cowardly. And there are many, many examples of the past of where complete institutional corruption, greed, immorality in all forms are just blatant. And take your pick of which one you want to choose of when we've been lied to. And it takes only a few to start realising there's a higher plan to this. It's not just, oops, some towers blew up in America. Oopsies, didn't mean that to happen. There's a control system to it. And so if you think that the real control system, the real conspiracy here is the moon landing and the symbology on the dollar bill and the greys in Area 51 and the 9/11, the JFK assassination, Charlie Kirk assassination, all these little things, if you think that they are the real pinnacle of the conspiracy of what's going on, they're only at most division and trauma events to keep us divided and distracted, and they're good to understand, especially to take a wider look and realise they're being created by the group that we're trying to really get to. These smaller conspiracies are just a tip of the iceberg in the real grand scheme of what's going on. And this is where I get into who the Illuminati really are. And before we go on, I won't even really refer to them as the term Illuminati, because it's a pretty unfair, hubris kind of statement to even call them the Illuminati, because in Latin, the word Illuminati means someone that is enlightened. They are an enlightened one. And any small amount of knowledge of who these people really are, they are the polar opposite of enlightened. They are darkly enlightened, perhaps, because they possess the dark knowledge. They use knowledge and light for the dark reasons. They either hide it or use it against us to control us further. And before this term was even instituted into the Bavarian Illuminati in 1775, I think, before that, they actually wanted to call themselves the Perfectibilis, which means the perfected ones. So if that doesn't give you a bit of a hint of who these people think they think they're the perfect, enlightened, illuminated God on earth. they are as illuminated as the sludge on the bottom of a dustbin. They are cowardly, fearful, evil, demonic, horrific. You couldn't even call them people. It's an insult to the term of what a person is. Instead of Illuminati, you could call them dark occultists. You could call them the enslavers, the darkly illuminated, the dark Luciferians, whatever you want to call them. They are anything but illuminated. And even beyond this, they are not the Hollywoodized, hooded figure sitting around the table. We're going to control the masses. It's, again, more complicated, more complex, and it's less stereotypical than just your evil, satanic creeps sitting in a little dark room scheming out how they're going to control the world. And then, they're the only ones who understand, and then the rest are just dupes. It's more complex. I will admit there are certain rituals for another episode, which is very dark. There are certain rituals and things like that do go on where they may, wear robes and do things like this, because on a level of it, there are satanic, dark, occult aspects to it. But this is just a Hollywoodized, stereotypical version. You're more likely to find a Illuminati evil, world controller. You're more likely to find them wearing a nice 3-piece suit in a top government building than you are to find them in some woods in the middle of nowhere, killing a goat and burning a massive effigy, which they do have that. But your average, occultist, satanic world controller, as much as they are hidden away in hidden locations, they're not, you're not going to find them walking around with their big, Baphomet medallions on, and it's a Hollywoodized version, and that it's no accident that they make people think that that's what Satanism and, Illuminati is. It's because they're pushing you away from what the truth actually is. So, before I break down deeply who they are, they have an agenda, and this must be understood. Because I could name you every single person, organisation, every tiny little minute aspect of who these people are. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, because they are just vessels for the dark, controlling inversion force. They are just puppets serving the satanic agenda, for lack of better words. So we must understand what they know, their agenda. And once we understand those things, the playing field is levelled, and we are on a very good place to be able to free ourselves and remove them for all of their power. So their agenda, often referred to as the New World Order, which, hey, it goes beyond the World Economic Forum and Davos and all that stuff. They have their, their role. It goes beyond that. The New World Order, the real dark New World Order. They will achieve this by any means necessary. They don't get caught up in and attached to how they get it done. They know, and they just must. They are dead set on it will be done. They use the law of attraction, quite honestly, but in the dark aspect. They don't care how it's done. They care that it's done. And they, with every fibre of their being in almost every minute of every day, intently focus as one mind that this agenda will be done. And if people start to awaken to just, one of their methodologies, they will throw that away just as quickly and move on to a different method. And their agenda is that they want the elite the few at the very, very top, and that everyone in between has obviously their motivations: money, power, control, coercion, things like that. Everyone has their different motivations, but at the real tippy top, they want an elite few, the real elite, to control everything. Maximum control over absolutely everything. Everything that can be controlled, they want it controlled, because there's if it's not, it's just another variable of a way for us to awaken and express our human divinity and freedom. They want the absolute constriction, the tightening as much as they possibly can get away with over our freedom and our divine human spiritual nature. They want us to forget all of that and just think, little old me, I just do my job, I just, please my bodily comforts, rinse and repeat until I pass on, basically. They want minimal dissent. They want no one to reject and say no to it. They want everyone straight in a straight line, single file, orderly process. Look at Nazi Germany, the most blatant aspects. They want single file, order following, obedient slaves. Any means necessary. They want the complete removal of all freedom and autonomy. They want maximum surveillance, because then there's less privacy, there's less freedom, maximum control. They want maximum dependency on the system, because then if they're dependent on you, not only do they obviously have control and no freedom, if you say no and you start questioning things a little too much, boom, you can't get food, you can't get water, you can't travel anywhere anymore. They want that. China, take a look, because it's basically the blueprint of what they want here. And if the announcement of digital ID hasn't shown you that, then they are, just trying to test out and see what the people will accept and who won't. It gets infinitely worse than that. I mean, 1984, thankfully some people are recognising that it was quite true, and it was a blueprint for what these people are doing. It goes even worse than that. Just think the most technological, fascistic, horrific, cranking down slavery obedience system as possible. They want the absolute tightest dystopia possible. Again, any means necessary, and it's panning out to be technological in this day and age. The AI takeover, things like that. The whole real New World Order might be the discussion for another episode, because I don't want this to go too long. But they want separation, segregation. They want to almost stop us procreating so that they can create the children and they can create them in their image. They want an extreme gap between the people at the top and the people at the bottom. There already is, but they want basically the removal of the middle working class. They just want the absolute slave class and the ruling elite class. They just want this poor class to just be poor worker drones, just like in the Matrix, just used for our body heat. Pay tax, follow your orders, buy and consume, obey, sit down, shut up, be scared, be cowardly, be part of the herd, and do not speak out. That is exactly where they want you. Maximum control. Have that at the forefront of your mind, and every symptom of that, every methodology of instituting that, they will use that. They have, they are, and they will, until we recognise this. They want androgyny, so there is minimal separation between the genders, because although, yes, at the very basis of it, we are just divine spirits, souls, we are purely one and equal, but without a doubt there is a difference between man and woman. Doesn't mean that we're unequal. We are all equal in our rights. We're all the same in the base level. We're all, pink on the inside. But they want the complete removal of all gender, because they want us to be completely, not unified in the correct term, they want us to be the same. They want us to have no individuality, no uniqueness. We are all just the one, the same, shaved head, worker drone, barcode society. That's basically what they want. In any means necessary. It doesn't have to be that blatant, but that's basically their agenda. They want a digital currency, eugenics, servitude, suffering, ignorance, all of the above, everything, all of these different symptoms. Just 1984, Brave New World, Animal Farm, things like this. They're blueprints of literally what is going on, because more often than not, these people that are writing these books, they were insiders. They were being told what the agenda is. And this agenda's existed before even the 20th century, but it's never changed. Even before technology rolled out, the agenda was the same. And they just thought, any means necessary. If people reject one little part, okay, we'll move on, go to the next one. And unfortunately, most people can't see these things, so they just run right along. That's why divide and conquer still works swimmingly. That's why all these different mind control tactics and the mainstream media lies still work hugely. That's That's why people still vote and believe some of this nonsense, because they are just programmed. Because again, we are biological computers and we are being programmed in our thoughts, emotions and actions to serve this class. But beyond all of this, there is much, much more of their agenda. But again, just look at it as maximum control, minimal freedom, minimal autonomy, individuality. That's what they want, because then we serve them, we create what they want for them, and we don't step out of line. And if you do, you're out. Just like Hitler said, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and they will eventually believe it. Just this alone is just one of their many techniques of how they keep us enslaved. Because the average person, if they heard what I'm saying here, they would go, no, that's way too huge, that's way too complex and such big a lie. That could never be possible. When actually, quite the opposite. If you make the lie, so if you make the overarching thing so unbelievable, especially when you get really far down the rabbit hole of the nature of some of these beings that run this whole control system, it's so unbelievable that your average person, your average know-nothing sheep, would look at it and just go, no way, don't believe it. And then you do the slightest bit of research, open your mind a little bit, and you're almost going to have like a midlife crisis, just realising, wow, I didn't know all of this. It's been so blatantly in front of me this whole time. Yeah, basically. And it keeps going on and on and on and on. And you just learn more and more and more. And then from that point on, every new event and distraction and false flag that comes up, you just look at it and go, yeah, nothing new. It's just another thing that they've thrown out there to get people divided. And hopefully we can start recognising that and breaking free. And there is some movement being made, but who knows what the future holds. So before I get into the overarching people on the different hierarchies and levels, we must understand the institutions that keep this all perfectly in lockstep. The false god, the prison, the false god, God, gold, oil, drugs, the things that basically make this world go round, money, food, the resources like that. That is what these people do serve on the lower level before you get onto the level of where they really want to only serve control and pure just evil itself. Before it gets up to that real top level, there are people that do, of course, have their motivations. Financial, they want power, they want hierarchy, they want to feel special. These people that aren't as so in the know, they will serve these things, and they're more than happy to do that. And as we'll come to see, it is, as you go up the pyramid more and more, it is a level of knowledge. It's a hierarchy of knowledge. But all of the institutions, corporations, systems, governments, etc., at large, are controlled by the same force, and if they're not, they're either going to have a war put on them if they resist, or they will end up being controlled. Again, everything that they can, they will control and dip their hands in. But ultimately, they all work together to create a species, human species, dependent on material gain and false belief systems. They create this illusion, this false, huge, overarching lie to keep us crammed into a little box of little old me, just, do my job, go home, eat my junk food, to the grave, basically, life's a bitch and then you die, basically, is what they want you. And all of these corporations and institutions serve that, knowingly or not, but at the very, very high level, even if the CEOs don't know it, they're being influenced by some not very good people. And even the people that may control them, even they might not be in the know. But again, it goes up and up and up and up because it's so complex. It is the spider web. And there is a huge web of all these different parts. And then only when you get even beyond the legs of the spider and the body of the spider, which goes even in, and the head, it goes smaller and smaller and smaller to the very top control system, the top of the pyramid, as we'll get to. But ultimately, when we live a life dependent on these institutions, you name the institution, one is de-individuated. We are all the same. We are average, dumb, just another sheep, manipulated and used for the gain of others, to just serve the system and not take a step back and realise what truly matters in your life. Beyond even family and friends and money and resources, and as much as those things are important and they play a role, there are more important things once those things are secured. And all problems that these institutions are supposed to solve, they only treat the effects at best. They only, work on the symptoms, but never, ever will they work on the cause. And cause and effect, no real change, no real solution can be brought about unless we take a step back and look at the root cause. Because ultimately what they're trying to do is they go into the cinema, metaphorically of course, go into the cinema, they see on the big projection screen this movie playing out and they go, oh, I don't like this part of the movie. I'm going to shout and scream and punch this projector screen. Not realising the film's already been made. At best you can only work on the symptoms, and that's not going to do very much, if at all. What you have to do is take a step back and change it at its root. You have to change the movie before it's actually created and projected. But they won't do this, and especially in the scientific institutions, and I've seen this for myself, in the medical industry, in any institution, universities, research, things like that, the healthcare in the UK alone, let alone America, I mean, wow. It's a corporation, it's a business, it's a revolving door, and insiders have literally proven and said, if the word cure is even uttered in one of these institutions, they will tell you, say that word again, and you're out the door. We don't work for cures here. We work for treatments. We work for surgeries and treatments, things that only work on the symptoms. And again, at best, if you work on these symptoms, you may fix the symptoms. You might take those antidepressants. They might make you feel all happy and dandy. But you're not getting to the root cause of why that exists. So at best, you will treat that few little symptoms, but you are going to get multiple, probably, more problems. One treatment of a little solution of a little symptom is going to cause 5 more problems, and the cycle repeats itself. And so we are indoctrinated and programmed to love and be dependent on this system since birth. It is a complete head to toe, especially in the first 7 years of our life, system to keep us, little old me. These institutions are necessary, and it's always been that way, so there's no point in trying to change them. It's perfectly curated to keep it that way, unless we do something about it. And so now we're really getting into the real meat and potatoes of what's going on here. The Illuminati. Some people want to think that the celebrities are in the big club. Just like, George Carlin said, it's one big club and you ain't in it. The celebrities ain't in it either. And they're all more than happy to throw up these symbols and all these, at best, all it's doing is them showing you who owns them. No way on earth are these celebrities, these vessels of nothing behind the eyes. Nothing about them is in this club. They are showing to you, we are owned. We are our agent, our label, our manager is telling us what to do, and we're more than happy to follow those orders as long as it brings us fame, fortune, gain the world but lose your soul. That's basically what a celebrity is. They are created as distractions and idol worship. And they will throw these symbols up to you to show you we are owned, and plays into karma as well, because if they're constantly showing to you there is a control system to this, it's almost like in a sick, twisted way, they want you to, it's a way of reducing the karma of them, because if they're, if I have an apple, a stand selling lemonade, there's more karma on the lemonade stand that doesn't say that it's got poison in it, and it has got poison, than the one that says poison. Because if it says poison, and you drink that, you are largely knowingly drinking that poison, There's less karma in that because you've almost consented. It's not as blatant as just saying that to your face, but they put their little, they put their stamp on it just to show you we're being controlled, all of us. And these celebrities are low on the pyramid. Some of them are a little more involved. You've got your Lady Gagas and things like that. They'll do their big satanic rituals in their concerts and things like that. Again, it's just to show it out to you. It's just to show you this is our agenda. We're all owned. You won't find any celebrity on the radio and the mainstream charts that isn't owned in some aspect, or at least isn't owned yet. They all are just being controlled by this same force. And it's the reason why they do this and this, because it is the one eye at the very top, that all-seeing eye that they want to imitate, because they want to be God, not the celebrities, but the ones that control them. The top of that pyramid that you see on the dollar bill triangle, that eye that they want to see everything, the all-seeing surveillance system, that's why they put in front of you this pyramid and this eye, because it's the all-seeing eye, the false one, and it's the pyramid of control. And trust me, these celebrities are very low. They like to think all cocky and, oh, look at me, if anything, they're being laughed at because they are just little puppet drones that are just singing their low frequency song to just keep people in a slumber at best. So don't for a minute think that these celebrities are anything nearly involved. Even Jay-Z and Beyonce, they're puppets, as are the politicians. And leading into that, politicians. If you think that Trump and Obama and even Bill Clinton and Bush, even though he was in the Skull and Bones, which is a different discussion, they are owned again. Arguably, Trump is a little less owned. That's why he's, come against a bit of opposition, even though that's controlled. He is just another puppet. And he made all these promises, I'm going to do this and that. And if the Epstein situation hasn't shown you anything, I mean, he's owned. In some level or another, he's far from enlightened. He's far from understanding what really goes on here. He talks about the deep state and the lying media. He dips his toes in a bit of what really goes on. Maybe that's why they took a shot at him, but even then I think that was kind of controlled, because it makes everyone think he's the saviour, saved by God to, change the world. And I've chose this image on purpose to also tie in to the thing I was saying earlier of, it's the Jews. Oh, those Jews, they run the world, the Zionists. I mean, first off, most people misinterpret this as your average Jew on the street is to blame for the world control system. I mean, the average Jew has no idea. They just have been indoctrinated since birth to just believe that Judaism is the correct religion. I mean, they have no play in it, let alone the Jews that are on a certain level. There are, of course, evil Israel state people that have, a part to play. But I mean, it gets to a level where they're using the facade of Jewish, and they, on the higher level, they realise that it's all a joke. They know that religion is a scam and that it's just a control system to put out to the masses. And yet, you will see all of the politicians bow down, get on their knees for this religion itself. They'll all kiss the wall and they'll all wear their little funny hat. They are showing you, yes, we're being controlled by the system, but even the Jews are controlled by a higher force. They might not know it, but it goes beyond the Jews. I need to emphasise this because as people are somewhat starting to wake up, they still think that it's the Jews. I mean, I don't know what's worse, not knowing it at all or thinking it's them. It's childish. It's not just one little group in the know. It's a wide, complex system of institutions, secret societies, corporations, groups, think tanks, on and on and on and on. And the same goes for the Freemasons. People think that it's the Freemasons that run the world, and it's the Jesuits and the name the religion or secret society. I mean, don't get me wrong, on the very, very high level of it, Freemasons do play a role, And at the very least, they are gatekeepers of this knowledge that's ultimately, with Freemasonry especially, in its true esoteric positive aspect, it is actually beneficial. It's a way of teaching people moral rightness, natural law in other ways. It's, it speaks of the different tools, because ultimately it's about being a builder. But the problem is, people don't understand there is dark and light masonry. There is the light masonry, the true positive original intent, which is, to make people better, make you a good man or woman. Use these internal tools of, the square and compass and all these things, which is for another episode, is to use these aspects to become a better person. But instead, the ones that really are involved in the system, are the dark builders. They are the ones who use this knowledge, this light, to build not only a wall of light or break down the wall. Instead of doing that, they create a wall to block off the truth. They hide the knowledge, they gatekeep it under oaths and secrecy and very high hierarchy and degrees. And your average Mason, just like your average Jew, they don't know what's going on. They will deny to the ends of the earth that anyone in their top part of their organisation is involved. They probably won't know that. You ask any Mason, especially that's on the below the third degree or on the third degree, or even some degrees above, they will deny to you that the Masons run anything, because they're not going to be told that it is. You don't just become a Freemason and instantly they go, right, yeah, here's the secret, we run the world, now don't tell anyone. It's more complex than that. And your average Bill and Ted down your local lodge, they have no idea. That's not it. Same with the Jews. It only, at the very most, is a compartmentalized hierarchical system of grooming, of seeing what tendency of psychopathy and what usefulness one can play, how well they keep these secrets and how much they play into it. And if someone is good enough, they'll find their ways up the ranks, and they may get into a level of where they learn the royal secret, which is, spoiler alert, little children. Need I say more? And anyone else on a lower level than that has no idea. They have no idea, because it's perfectly compartmentalized hierarchically to keep people lower until you're being groomed to the way up to the top. And if you don't have certain traits, often psychopathic, if you don't have those traits, you're not going to be able to make it past. But don't get me wrong, there are parts of the Masons and the Rosicrucians and the OTO and organisations like that, different secret societies, definitely play a role. But they just, please, the ones on the lower level have no idea. Do not blame them. Same with the Jews. Don't go out and attack some Jews because, I hate Netanyahu, so I'm just going to go attack some Jew on the street. They have no idea what's going on. Same with the lower Masons. And so these secret societies definitely play a role, but only in the higher levels. Only once you've been perfectly chosen, hierarchically groomed for your characteristics and traits to be on this certain level where you're a good gatekeeper of knowledge and, you can be useful to them. And even then, there isn't just the threshold of where you know nothing and they'll just unleash everything to you. It is a perfect degree system of little trickles of knowledge, and you will only get to certain levels if you are allowed to. Religion on the higher levels, it's the same, just in different ways. Secret societies, known and not known, are no different. And the unidimensional thinking of people that just think, oh, it's just the Masons, or it's just the Jews, or just this and that. It is a complete compartmentalized combination of all of these things. Also secret societies, corporations, institutions. On the higher levels, they all play a part, even if they don't know it. As long as they serve their specific part of the system, that's all that matters. They'll get paid enough to keep their mouth shut, or they might even be threatened if they become a threat. That's all it takes. They don't have to be fully in the know. They don't have to understand what the whole system is. Only when you get really up the hierarchy will they understand what the real goal is here. But beyond even the religions and the secret societies, we have think tanks. Just another pawn in the game, but ultimately these are very useful, and still very prevalent in coming up with different ways, different things, different false religions to throw out to the masses. Because ultimately the ones that really are at the top of this, the high up, they're so enslaved mentally by the dark, involutionary, almost satanic force itself, that they have almost lost their capacity to really properly think and to properly, creatively, imaginatively control the masses. All they know is that we must control and that it must be done. And so instead of, spending all of their time thinking of how to do it, they have their, of course, ancient methods that have never had to change because people won't wake up to them, divide and conquer, things like that. They'll use those, but the more specific, useful things that they can throw out into society, they use think tanks for. And you have many different think tanks that exist. You have Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, World Economic Forum, Davos, Bilderberg Group, Bohemian Grove, arguably, Club of Rome, Trilateral Commission, the list goes on. And there are ones that we don't even know. These are just the ones that we know of, where for different purposes and different ways of doing things, like the Club of Rome, their main focus is eugenics and environmental concerns being used to control people and to institute new ways of control under the guise of these problems that may or may not exist, or may not be as dangerous and powerful as they like to put it. All of these think tanks have their own motivations. They have their own collection of just lovely people. And ultimately, they, knowingly again or not, they are a grooming group of bringing together some of the best minds, the most evil minds of people that want either power, incredible resources, most influence, etc. They come together and think, how can we bring about our desired agenda of mass control and creating the control class versus the absolute poor class and reducing this worker middle class? How can we bring this about? How can we control people more under the guise of climate change? How can we get people to take certain vaccines and make people, accept more surveillance and digital aspects? Things like this. They come together and just think, how can we do this? What can we institute out there? They create the neo-feminist movement of men hating. They'll create the whole climate crisis. They'll create the whole gender divide. The list goes on. And they create all of these little things, and if one thing stops working, they'll throw it out just as quickly as they made it. They're not attached to these systems. They only know the agenda. Some levels more than others. They only know that agenda, and then any means necessary, they will push that out. And again, there's more. Skull and Bones, a secret society. There's so many of them, and even if they don't have to know each other, they serve the same force. They don't have to have the highest level of knowledge. Again, they serve that same force. That's all that matters. And all of them have their own motivations. Either way, it gets done, unless we awaken to it. And so you do get to a level where they have certain rituals and parties and quite questionably satanic and almost cannibalistic weird aspects that go on. That'll be for a different episode because I don't want to stretch this too long. But just look at the Rothschild parties. Look at Eyes Wide Shut. There was no accident of why Stanley Kubrick, one of the best directors of all time, was accidentally died after he released this movie, basically exposing this is what the elites do. They come together in their parties, in their weird, deviant parties, and to have fun. I mean, they'll have fun, or they'll, come together and construct a lie for people to believe in. But they're sick, twisted people, man, and it's no myth, it's no conspiracy that this goes on. I mean, look up Marina Abramovich and spirit cooking and all this weird stuff. I mean, I won't get into that for this video, and it's very dark, but it goes on, and it's proven that this goes on, and they are sick. And there are satanic aspects. I don't mean the Anton LaVey or Church of Satan or Temple of Set Satanism. I mean the pure... Another video, of course, we'll get into this deeper when I go into the whole series of Satanism, but this isn't just your typical satanic, Baphomet-loving, cloak, candle-lit, hooded figure. That's not your typical Satanist. Your typical Satanist, again, is more likely to be in a three-piece suit and be in some corporate building than in some, little satanic temple. So when I talk of Satanism, it's purely the worship of the self, of the ego, of me, and ultimately the very end, inversion of pure anything that is good and right and orderly. Flip it on its head. Institute that. Love versus fear, good versus bad. Flip it all on its head. Inversion, because they can't create anything new or positive. They have to just flip already what exists on its head and then push that out for the masses. So you'll come to find that your average person on the street is a Satanist. And they won't tell you that, and they will deny it to the end of the earth because they don't go into the woods and worship a Baphomet and sacrifice goats. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is worship the self as all that matters, and the bodily pleasures and everything you do in your life serves the inversion principle and involution. That's all that matters. And your average person, that's all they do. If you believe that they don't, take a look outside and see what your average person does for every single waking minute. All they do is live for the self and the ego, and that is satanic, but different story. And yes, it does tie into the Vatican, especially. That place is anything but holy. It is one of the most deep, evil places of the whole planet. It's enshrouded as some big holy place, especially the Pope. Dark, evil, paedophile protecting, satanic, evil people that really are in the heart of this place. Same with Mecca, same with State of Israel. There's nothing holy about it. Doesn't mean your average Christian or your average Jew or average Muslim has anything to do with it. It just means that the institution that they have been fooled by is deeply infiltrated by some dark, dark people that perfectly work to keep you ignorant as to what's really going on and what really has happened in the past and what really needs to be done to free ourselves. So yes, there is a pyramid, like the dollar bill will show you, and wide at the base, so there's more people there, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter into the spider web as you go, and there is a point of where it separates and that capstone is lifted off because there are different forces that play at that certain level when they really are in the know. And it goes interdimensional, folks. It goes interplanetary almost. That will be for another episode, but without a doubt, there is a pyramid at play. And as you go up that pyramid, it is more knowledge and more hierarchy that unfolds with it. So as you go higher and higher, not only do you start serving the pure satanic force in of itself, but you start gaining more and more real knowledge. So even at the lower levels that institute these control systems, they may have no idea about who really runs the world, but they still serve it and they still enforce it because they have their own motivations. And so this pyramid has you hoodwinked, keeps you in a cage. Because every top institution in all areas such as politics, finance, religion, education, food, technology, etc., all of them, with any influence at all, they have a hierarchy of importance in ownership and control, and it goes higher and higher and higher, with each rank answering to those above. As we'll see, master, slave, down and down and up and up. Some say that this Illuminati is at the top, but they are the opposite of being illuminated, as we discussed. But they certainly have certain knowledge, but they use it for the dark aspect. And sadly, more often than not, people fail to understand that this is how the world is. That even if people have good intentions at the top of these corporations, It doesn't matter about what you intend, it matters about what you do and what actually happens. Therefore, knowingly or not, and your average person is no different, they may think that they're a good person, but what do they serve? What do they advocate for? What do they do? That's what matters. Know them by their fruits, by their actions. This is the problem. By ignoring your enslavement and by advocating the master-slave perpetual relationship in society, you are taking part, you are creating and enforcing this matrix that we speak of, this control system. And as each person collectively starts serving this force, knowingly or not, we create the aggregate prison. And so you really think that it's the politicians that have the power here? It goes way beyond even them. And so you'll have to look into these images for yourself to really ponder upon them. But the theme of all of these pyramids remain the same. At the very bottom, you have your average dumb sheep, dupe, pawn in the game. Birth, school, labour, tax, debt, retirement, death. You may procreate. You may have slight little differences between there, but the pattern remains. You're born, you're indoctrinated, you're a work slave, you pay your taxes to give Big Daddy a cut of your work, of your fruits of your labour. You get in loads of debt, you struggle, you live in fear and ignorance largely. You retire with the tiny few years of life that you will have at that point, with perhaps a good amount of money, but what are you going to do with it when you're old and decrepit and your back doesn't work and you're, a walking corpse almost? It doesn't matter, because you're close to that point of getting in the grave. And that is the perfect cycle they have you working for. And again, there might be slight differences, and some might be able, they might get a little higher than others, but either way, you have this sheep debt slave class, and 9 out of 10 at least people worldwide live in this cycle in one way or another, and you can free yourself from it. All you have to do is gain this knowledge and start resisting and saying no and take your power back. But most people won't do that. They will fight you at the fact that this system even exists, let alone that there is a way to break out of it and that we should, etc. I don't even know what to say. There are some people at this point that are too asleep to even try, quite honestly. But you have these debt slaves, and then you have the control systems as it goes. You have controlling over these population resources, these worker drones, the labour units. You have them all being controlled by, at the bottom, you have the world population control. You have the religions, you have government, you have education, and then you have media. The things that will all lie to you, keep you in a box, keep you in a belief system, keep you in a control system, thinking that we need this slavery hierarchy, we need some faith to believe in. That, it's not like religion is the one problem that exists. Again, God exists, but is not to be found in religion. You have education that will lie to you of what's truly going on and what happened in the past and what matters and what you should do. It doesn't teach you anything about real life skills. And then you have the media that will perpetuate all of this, keep you in the trance of believing that all of this is normal and legit and necessary, and all of them playing together on the very low part of the pyramid to keep this control system in. These are the 4 horsemen of our control system. And then as you take a step up, you have the world resource control. So the population are now controlled in their minds, in their thoughts, in their intents and motivations. And now you can control the very resources that they need to survive. You have the banks, you have the big corporations, the oil companies, the Fortune 500 companies, all these stockbrokers and all these big, corporations and companies that all the Marxists will tell you are the ones running the show and that capitalism is the problem. They're a very low part of the pyramid, again, but nonetheless, they play a huge role because they keep all of our resources controlled, tightly controlled. They control all your money, and look into the whole credit scam. That's a whole different rabbit hole to go down, but it's a scam. You have all the oil control, all these different institutions that will keep the scarcity paradigm continuing, making people think that, we've got to scratch and work constantly to live and just get these meek amount of resources and food and water and shelter. And then people will live the big cycle of trying to serve and obtain these resources, not realising that there is a huge purpose of life beyond all of that. These resources are being controlled by these big corporations and companies nonetheless. And as I said earlier, the ones that are really at the top of these corporations, at the very least, they're being influenced and paid off by the certain controllers. But at the most, you actually find out that a lot of these top institutional leaders are even Satanists themselves, proud Satanists, even certain, school principals and company owners are proud Satanists, but different story for a different time. You go beyond the resource control, now we start seeing the financial control, or the central banks, the Federal Reserve, these big multi-trillion-dollar institutions that control the biggest religion of all, this whole society, money. All of these things being perfectly controlled, especially now when money is literally a number on a screen and these people just print it on a whim and can cause inflation and things like that. If you control the money, you control the population. And this is exactly what's going on. You have the financial control, and then as you go beyond those, because even these financial folks are evil, psychopathic people, trust me. You go beyond that, now we really start getting into the muddy waters of who really gets, has their hands in the pie, who really runs the show. You have the powerful sub-families, or the think tanks, you have the round table, you have all the secret societies, you have all the organisations, what I spoke about, the different think tanks, the round table, Bilderbergs, Skull and Bones, your Bohemian Groves, those kind of folks. You have those that they know that there's a bit of a, something else going on beyond just even money. They dabble in a bit of knowledge on that. But then, when you really break past that point, now we're getting into some dodgy stuff. We have the families, we have the bloodlines that really know what's going on, and they really have the knowledge, the ancient knowledge, because that's why it is bloodline. That's why it's families that run this whole thing, because they keep it in the family of their genetic lineage, because with these genes that they possess from almost Atlantean times, they have certain abilities, certain genetic capabilities that they want to hold on to, that are for them, not for us. And then also, as well as that, they will groom them into having knowledge that has been passed down through all these generations. Because this knowledge is, they slowly, will feed it to them, but ultimately they will come to tell them, this is how the system works, this is what goes on our level of it, this is what role we play, this is what you've got to do. If you don't play along, they'll either kill you off, or they will they'll just mind control you. They'll put certain rituals on you to traumatize you and fracture your mind and make you a puppet to their control. And it does happen. There are whistleblowers that have actually said about this, that have been born in satanically bloodline families. They exist nonetheless. Blatant, not just some conspiracy. I mean, there are the Rothschilds, there are the Rockefellers, people like that. Even they aren't at the real tippy top. It goes even beyond the Rothschilds. I know, crazy. Either way, you have all of those. You have the Committee of 300, certain royal bloodlines, and then we go up even more. We have the Council of 13, the Council of 9, little tiny groups like that of people that really know what's going on and really are just demonic almost, that they know what they're doing and they work with one mind. They work on a complete unified front to hide this knowledge from us, to enforce this system, and to give their marching orders to all of the systems below them of, okay, we're going to get our sub-families and the think tanks and the secret societies to do this part and to do this, And it trickles down and down and down until they, you pay people off and you coerce people and you threaten them. And it goes down and down and down and down until it trickles into your average person of what they believe and what they serve, what they know, which is not very much. And now, the real Illuminati. Beyond even these councils and even these bloodlines, you do have royalty. For sure, that's what the whole divine right of kings comes from, because it's all about bloodline. That's why they are obsessed with that, because it depends who you ask, but certain bloodlines and genetics will give you certain spiritual, you could say, but not in a good way, abilities that allow you to tap into certain things and perhaps shift your shape in a different way. But either way, there are bloodlines, and I mean, the British royalty, for one, people adore them. They look up to them and think that they're some big mother or father figure that is a great symbol of what our country stands for. When if only you knew what goes on behind closed doors with these families, with the royalty alone. I mean, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. You don't want to know what these people do behind closed doors, and it's been proven. It's no secret, really. If you do a little bit of digging, there are evil people that are behind these faces, almost literally. And so when you go beyond even this point, this will be for a different episode because we're running a little low on time. But folks, laugh all you like, but what really runs this show, what the real Illuminati are, they are interdimensional, shape-shifting. They are, I hate to say it, but chances are they are reptilian. And I know, laugh all you like, turn the show off, I don't care. I only say this because my research has led me to unequivocally understand that this is the way, and you don't have to get set down into the fact of, is it reptilian, or is it, Nordic, or is it all these different types of species and race? It doesn't matter, because the point remains, when you really get beyond all these institutions and corporations and think tanks and all these other things, societies, the very tippy top point, even beyond royalty and these groups, even though they often are part of this, it gets to a point where we have ancient bloodlines of beings that can tap into forces beyond what we can see. There are questionable things with the moon and Saturn. That's why they often are Saturn worshippers, but that's a whole different rabbit hole. But ultimately, these people, not only in their thinking, because they're stuck in the reptilian brain, the brainstem of just control and ritual and survival and me, that is one part of it. But even beyond that, they're shapeshifters. It sounds crazy because, again, make the lie big. It's crazy. There's no accident why in all the paintings and holy books and epics of past, they would speak of those coming down with wings and with chariots, and the lizards and the fish head people and the ant people and all these different weird species and races and things like that, and correlations between all of these things that have no link. Parts of China that were talking the dragon, and then at the other side of the earth you've got them talking about the Dogons and all these different parts. They aren't just bedtime stories for people of the past in their tribes. It is hidden allegory for really who runs the place. There's no accident why the pharaohs would have their elongated heads, and why they loved the serpent, and why there's all these cults of the serpent. It's no accident, and it's no bedtime story. It's not been debunked. Really go down the rabbit hole of, David Icke, for one, as much as the man has taken in ridicule, he knew what he was talking about, and it wasn't just his opinion, it was all research based, as is what I talk about. It goes to a level beyond human, because they ultimately are purely evil, satanic demons, quite honestly. And at the very high level of it, they feed and live and rely on both human and baby blood, which sounds crazy, but adrenochrome, look it up. That's why they have their rituals with children and things like that. They feed on what is known as loosh, which, because we're running low on time, I won't get into this, but low consciousness, low vibrational fear and controlling and cowardly force aspects of our consciousness when we are in these low vibration consciousnesses and energies. When we are in these types of consciousness day to day, and your average person is just, like I say, your worker drone, that produces a certain type of energy that goes out into the field, for lack of a better term. These people feed on that. They rely and they get strength and power from this being emitted from your average person. And when that collectively continues, when you get everyone traumatized and scared from something like 9/11, it is a feast. When you have children being bombed in Gaza and things like that, the constant theatre of war, it is nothing but a ritual, bloodletting, sacrifice feast of low consciousness and blood and death. Because at the very highest level, the real Illuminati, they're a death cult. They are a satanic, vampiric force that feed on this form of consciousness, and any means necessary. If blood is spilt, if fear is thrown out, they love it. They see it like a bargain bucket, and they will chow down on that, and they can't get enough of it. And their ultimate feast is this new world order that we speak of. That's why it's being instituted. Not for money, it's just the natural evolutionary process. It is perfectly orchestrated to create a 24/7 farm of blood and fear and death for every single person. And the thing that will create most of that is a society where people are controlled as much as possible. That is their ultimate goal, because at that point, no one would resist, no one would dissent, and if they do, dead or put in a gulag. Their end goal is a society where that exists, where there's no dissent, and it is just a pure, constant farm of this low energy. As crazy as that sounds, and there are many different illustrations of this type of pyramid, because it's very complex, and many of them we won't know, and these faces, again, we won't know what they look like or their names, and it's irrelevant, because as long as we understand that they do exist, the rest is just detail. And so this manipulation, finally, hierarchy of knowledge as you go up. There is banking, business, military, politics, education, media, religion, intelligence agencies, medicine and drug companies, and illegal drugs and organised crime. These are just the main things that all come together and have a hierarchical system of knowledge going up and up, from, bank cashier at the bottom to the CEO, the chairman of the board at the very top, that knows what the institution's about, and then beyond even them, the ones that are giving them their orders and telling them what to do, they know more, and it goes up and up and up and up till you get to the very tippy top that is this group that I speak of that really run the show. And this has been like this since as long as we can count, since almost the origin of humanity, quite honestly. That's when it comes from. It doesn't come from the 50s and the 20s and the 1776 and all these times. They're just milestones of when things have changed. From when it goes from kingship, rulership of one, people realise that's stupid, and then they move into, now we have a democratic government that serves the people, that you all vote for and consent into giving your power. It's just another face, and these are all just different milestones of when things like that change, but this whole system has existed since the very beginning. And our true history, we couldn't even imagine what has gone on. We are lied to about what our human past is. It's not just Darwinistic apes going into humans. A different discussion again in of itself. This exists nonetheless, and this is just trying to whet your appetite to get you into the years of research it takes to really wholeheartedly understand that this is what's going on. But as every new event happens in society, it's just another opportunity to realise this has all been orchestrated and this is no accident of why these things exist. And so, it's a master-slave society of, even at the very top of these Illuminati, reptilian, like I speak of, even they are slaves of the demonic, satanic, involutionary force itself. Even they are slaves. And as much as they have knowledge, they're still cowards. They're still scared, because they're scared that people waken. They're scared that we realise who we truly are and waken. And it goes slave, master, all the way down, even to your average person. They want to be a master over another, or they want to be the slave of someone else, of, the left and right brain imbalance of, are you a passive, I want to have a master to rule over me and protect and provide, or are you on the other side of, I want to be an authoritarian ruler over another? Either way, it's a perpetual slave-master relationship. And the only way out of this is to take a step back and look within and realise what I've been speaking about this whole time. Our true nature is divine. We properly are incredible. We have insane amounts of potential. We are here to do great things. You are here to do great things, but instead they have us fooled and mind controlled into thinking that we don't matter and that we are just here to just consume and then die. That's how they want it, and it will remain that way, and it will get worse and worse and worse unless you realise this knowledge, unless you level the playing field and don't allow them to be the dark psychologists that they are, because that's all they are. They understand the human mind deeply and how to manipulate it, and only when we realise that information as well, their power puffs away into a cloud of dust and they no longer can exist. And so, the reason why I break all of this out is because this time in the world, it's getting closer and closer to their end date of 2030, when they want the maximum amount of control instituted. They want this 1984 dystopian society to be in full swing by that date. And if the announcement of digital ID hasn't just shown you that this is what they want, unless we awaken now, help your fellow man to do the same, and stop advocating for the stupid, illusory nonsense that society, every part of it, has created for us. Unless you realise that now, before it's too late, I honestly fear where we're going. We've gone far enough down the hole into the pit of your average person being satanic in their beliefs. This is nothing in comparison to where they want us to go. And so I implore you, do your research, do your homework into really the fact that what I'm saying here is true. Realise and remember who you truly are, and remember who you are. Realise the power that you have in your own life and in the whole world. And when you realise this, help your fellow man do the same. Because unless you spread what you know, you're almost just as bad, because you can know this whole conspiracy from head to toe yourself, and that's great. But unless you help someone else realise that, as many people as you can to realise that, like I'm trying to do, we can only go so far. And so I'll end with this. Remember who you are. Listen again if you have to. Research deeply into this. Listen to the works of Jordan Maxwell. Listen to the works of David Icke, Mark Passio. All of these greats of our time that have just done deep research beyond all ridicule, have broken out of the cage and realised there is a complete satanic system that is running here. And unless we take that step back and remember our true nature and free ourselves, we're in for a tough time. So, on a lighter note, remember, you can do truly great things. You are here to do great things. The reason why you've even made it this far in this longer than usual video is because you're not some common know-nothing sheep. You clearly have incredible amounts of curiosity and potential. And I implore you to awaken that and remember who you are and take your power back. You can do great things. Please share this to as many people as you can so we can get this information out there to help the masses awaken. Like, so it can be shown to more people. Subscribe so you can see the next few videos, the incredible rabbit hole that is beginning to unfold from here on out. I hope you've enjoyed. This has been a long one, but it's necessary of what's been said, because no one else will say it this blatantly. And no one else goes this far. They just think it's the Jews and things like that. Either way, you're incredible. All you have to do is remember that and help your fellow man to do the same and remember the same. And together, we can free ourselves. It starts with you. Remember, there is only one rule. Do no harm. No masters. No slaves. This has been Morality Matters. I'll catch you next time when we go even deeper down the rabbit hole. Hope you've enjoyed. See you next time.